Hey, Sean G here from Chasing the Truth. You're about to get some of the best of samples of shows I've done over the last 5 years. God bless y'all and enjoy.
No, I haven't, but I just thought it was interesting that the story that you just told me a few minutes ago before we started about the you feeling a presence in the room with you and the lights flickering on and off. And again, I think that that could be they are using the electrical system to feed off to gain power to in order to make an appearance.
Yes, I do. Yeah, that actually does make sense now that you mention it. The story he's referring to is a previous podcast with Tina Leanne Bice. And after the podcast is over, I hung up with her, and the lights flickered on and off, and sounded like an electrical short above me. And I felt a presence and had to tell it to leave. And then everything was okay after that. So just to fill in that gap there. So the next, you have some crazy, not crazy. Well, some people would say crazy pictures. Some very. I'm assuming that you have a myriad of pictures that you haven't published yet. Plain devil's advocate here. Have you ever used Photoshop on these, or any kind of ways of manipulating the photos that you have presented? How have you done anything like that?
Let me explain anything that I do to photos. And
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
so usually what I do, if it's necessary, and I might add that I have a whole file of photos that are straight from the camera and completely unaltered, and I would be glad to present them to anybody that's an expert in photography that would examine them, because I know that they haven't been manipulated with. However, if I do manipulate the photo in any way, it's only to bring out what is already there. And so one of the things that I will do is I'll take the photo and zoom in on the places where I might see something. If I do see something, I'm going to crop it, and then I'm going to turn up usually the contrast and the light. And if there is something there that's worth saving, another thing that I will do is de-grain the photo so that it's not so grainy that you can't see what the features of the face are. So anything that I do, which is those three things, is just to enhance what is already there. How I feel about it is that there is a person there, or a former person, and they want to be seen, and I want to give the best representation of them that I can.
Okay. So, have you ever taken a photo and paired it with an actual real person that had been living prior, that was contemporary to the site that you were taking a photo with, if that makes sense?
Yes, I've gotten, my first example of that was with a friend of mine, and he asked me to come out to his hunt club, and he said that he had seen a woman in white walking down the hall several nights when he was staying over at the hunt club. Mm-hmm. This is about 30 minutes outside of Williamsburg. And because there were no compelling stories, there was no intriguing history, I was kind of reluctant to go. But I decided that since he was my friend, that I would go ahead and try to go out there and see if I could photograph this woman. So I went out with him one Friday evening, and I took photos all over the property, both inside and out. And when I got home, I downloaded them to my computer, and upon close examination, I had no woman in white. Now, I did, however, find two faces of males in the windows that were fairly clear. And so I published them on my Facebook page, and I wrote Kenny a note, that's his name, and I said, I'm sorry, Kenny, but I didn't find your woman in white. I did, however, find these two faces. I'm kind of thinking that they might be former owners of the place because it was a farm before it became a hunt club.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent him that message over Facebook, and he must have been on Facebook at the time because he immediately responded to me. And he said, "Oh my God, that's my best friend. He died in 1993 in Williamsburg's hospital, and he's now out there at the hunt club where that was his favorite place to be." And so I not only had Kenny identify him, but 4 other members of the hunt club identified this photo as that of the former member. Now, of course, I'm not going to give out his name for respect for his family,
Right.
but it was a positive ID of a photo that I had gotten. And that said, I've had several other interesting stories. Now, one wasn't a facial ID, and it took me completely by surprise. And I was investigating a place. I'd been asked to come down to a bed and breakfast in a place called Lee Hall near Williamsburg. And this bed and breakfast was in a building that had been there for well over 100 years. And it was known to be haunted. In fact, it's listed on Virginia's Most Haunted. And I went there and I gave a presentation of my first book. And then after that was over, I went around while there was a group of it was a tour from Kentucky, and the group was circulating throughout the bed and breakfast. And I was going behind them and taking photos. And so one photo that I happened to take was in the hallway, and it was where the manager was at. And what I saw was a white, now I call them a classic white, but it's white, it's evanescent, and you can't distinguish any facial features. In this case, you couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. But if you look down, for some reason, the lower leg appeared, and you could see that it had pants on and it had what looked like tennis shoes. So I'm assuming it was a guy. And about a week later, I went back and I showed the manager the photo that I'd gotten of the ghost that was standing right next to her while she was talking to this group of tourists. And I said that this can't be one of the ghosts from way back when this place was built. It has to be a newer ghost because, look, he's got a tennis shoe on. That looks fairly modern. And she put her hand over her mouth, and tears started welling up in her eyes. And she said, "That's not a tennis shoe." And you know, it looked like a tennis shoe to me, but I wasn't going to argue with her. And it took her a few seconds to be able to respond to me because she was all choked up. And she said, "That's my son's work shoes. He loved those shoes. He wore them all the time around here to work. He died a few years ago. This is his 10th anniversary of his death. He died in his early 40s of a heart condition." And she said, "I still have those shoes up under my bed." And she went up and got them and showed me. So in a kind of a strange way, I had a ghost identified by the appearance of its shoe. And I've had a couple others that I've gone behind some of the places where some of these paranormal television shows have been. And what I've done is tried to get photographic evidence of the paranormal in these places. And in 2 places in particular, one is the Red Garter in Williams, Arizona. I captured a photo in the window of what appears to be one of the original owners.
Hey folks, thanks for listening to this best of sample of some of my 5 years in doing this radio show podcast called Chasing the Truth. Please visit iamdarkwaters.com, or you can email me at seanG@iamdarkwaters.com. And my numbers and links are in the description below. God bless y'all, and I'll catch you on the flip side.